Yoga Chatters, how are you? Thanks for joining our 16th episode of Yoga Chats. And today my guest is Stephanie Tencer. Not everyone will know Stephanie Tencer from those of you who are tuning in from Ireland, at least. Some of you may. Stephanie is a wonderful Iyengar Yoga teacher who I met in 2018. We were both over in Pune in the Iyengar Yoga Institute studying for about a month. And I was very lucky. I traveled over on my own. A few people took me under their wings, so to speak. And in a way, Stephanie, you were one of those. And we used to practice together a lot. There was, how many days a week? Was it 6 days a week? There was self-practice. Yep. And it was a really special experience for me. I had such a wonderful time. The yoga was priceless. Being in the place was priceless. The food was great and the yoga chats were great. So now in a way we're revisiting those yoga chats. Stephanie, you're very welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Well, we always got on well, and we haven't had a chat since India, but we're Facebook friends and I always keep an eye on what you're doing. I liked how you transitioned from being a live in-person yoga studio to offering online, and I love the vibe on your website. I know are you a pure Iyengar Yoga studio?
Yep. Yeah, my training and all of the teachers who teach here were an Iyengar Yoga studio. Yep.
Sometimes I find, I hope you don't mind me saying, Iyengar Yoga studios can be a little bit black and white, and I've found that your presence is very colorful. And I really resonate with that. I feel that on your website, it is, you can book a class and all, but it's very joyful. It's very, I did I retuned a couple of things on my website over the last couple of months, and I went to look at your website. How's Stephanie doing it? That is nice. That is nice. So thank you.
Well, it makes me very happy to hear you say that, because that is something that I think sometimes we do a disservice to the method when, we emphasize perhaps some of the things that are important to teachers, but not necessarily important to prospective students. And so that was, it really was something I really was when I redid the website not that long ago, right? So I tried to keep that in mind and make it inviting and engaging and let people know why we love this practice so much, which has nothing to do with how many years of experience we have or, the challenge of the training. And, all of those things are part and parcel of the method and they have their value. But I don't think that's what attracts people to give this yoga thing a try.
Yeah, I know. I changed the language on my website a little, and it's a process. I'm still working on it, because I used to, my place, Samadhi, here is one of the longest running yoga studios in Temple Bar. And eventually someone said to me, or not Temple Bar, sorry, Dublin, I beg your pardon. Someone said, people don't really care about that. They're just looking for a yoga class that they'll enjoy. And the enjoyment aspect is not to be underappreciated. And, I was saying that I felt your website is very joyful. I'm choosing that word particularly because I find yoga is very joyful. It's very playful. It's slightly ridiculous. To me, it's a bit like adult crash, even a very serious class. People come in, you kind of play together. You show them your new trick and you roll around and you show them your new toy. We'll call it a prop, but look at this brick and I can do this with it. And then they all lie down and they go asleep and you read them a story. It's kind of like crash. So that's my take on it. I could see something in your website that I'm not saying you're running an adult creche, but I saw there was something of the exuberance that can happen with yoga. It's not a pole-faced practice. And I love that. So come here, tell me, we had that time together in India. Had you been before? What was your experience? Give me the side of things.
Yeah, my first trip to the Institute was in 2011. And then I went every other year for a few years. And I think by the time I went with you, I had already started going annually, or attempting to do so. And I echo what you said. It is a very special experience. There's just something about the immersion. I mean, being able to take the time and dedicate that to your practice and study of yoga. And then to do that collectively with other people that you know are equally, you know, anyone who shows up there is very passionate. I mean, to come from around the globe to spend a whole month studying yoga, you have to have a certain level of commitment. And so, yeah, it's really, there's like, I think reciprocal energy that you can pick up on. And it's always interesting to see how other communities, other countries do things a little different in their practice, other ideas. And yeah, with our particular trip, it was extra, it really was extra special, Greg. I mean, as much as I connect with other people, anytime I go with that group, we just had such a nice connection, and getting to practice together in the hall, helping each other through. And yeah, it was really
There was
something.
a wonderful sense of community like that. And people might expect that, but I wasn't expecting that. I had it in my mind. I was quite nervous going in. And I remember the first time I landed, I was jet lagged. I was staying with our mutual friend Lynn for a couple of nights before my place was ready, because I went a few days early because I knew I'd be jet lagged. And Lynn said, do you want to go around and we'll have a look at the place? And I went in and I was like, what's that prop for? You know? And she was like, oh, whatever you want, why don't you tomorrow come in and give it a try? And just that sense of exploration and playful exploration. Like, there were people keeping an eye that you didn't do anything crazy. It was very safe. But to be able to practice on the props that, you know, Mr. Iyengar had created and used for his life, and to go at them without knowing what they were for, but finding your own way. And, you know, seeing some of the props, like an incredibly high stool that I've seen photos of Mr. Iyengar over, like seeing those things that, in a way, in yoga terms, are like artifacts, was great. Do you know something that surprised me? I can see your rope wall and you can see my rope wall, and your rope wall, I know you have more, like, this is the Iyengar Institute in Pune. You have more ropes on your rope wall than they had there, which surprised me. I've exactly the same amount. Relatively speaking, I have a tiny studio in Dublin, and we have the same amount of ropes. And these little things, you know, I expected it to be just wall to wall, ropes everywhere, 100 people on the ropes kind of thing. But it was actually very, very homely in a way like that. So
one, just as a funny memory, I remember the first time I went there, one of the things that was most unusual to me that really I had to get used to was practicing in the hall, because there weren't straight walls. You know, it's I don't know what shape it is, how many sides there are, but just the fact that it wasn't square or rectangular, and trying to orient yourself there. I know there's the lines on the floor, and but yeah, because there aren't those long walls, they can't really put a ton of ropes up there. But yeah, doing a headstand and looking ahead and not seeing a straight, it was very different.
You're so right. I'm used to, you know, if I'm doing a headstand, I would probably be looking at the far wall to align my eyes, but everything was skewed. Lines on the floor, but even those lines were radiating out. So, excuse me, people at home, it's sort of almost like an amphitheater. You've got a stage, which is about what? It's up to your waist almost. It was fantastic for back bending off. And you could use that. The first day I thought, oh, the stage is sort of a sacred spot. No, everywhere, everything was there to be used. And not abused, but used well. like everything, it seemed, got a fresh coat of paint every year, and certainly the props, and they were all there to be not quite kicked around, but certainly to be used to their full extent. And something that took me a little while to get used to was the windows all had bars on them, which of course we're not particularly used to. And I remember myself and Stephanie Dave, our mutual friend, both of us would have a stiffness in Baddha Konasana, and strapping ourselves onto the bars and sitting in Baddha K for 20 minutes or half an hour, with kind of wedge ourselves in and weighing ourselves down, trying to open out our groins, and but having the window here, and we'd be kind of chatting and looking out the window and quiet contemplation and talking about where we'd go for lunch, and watching the dogs go by and watching the rickshaw drivers that we knew and all. And it was all really it was a very, very lovely, very gentle time.
Yeah, agreed.
So tell me, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that idea that you mentioned about exploration, being playful in the practice, and then even, you brought it up in terms of the website and kind of in teaching. I just love that. I mean, like, to me, that really encapsulates what it is about yoga, about Iyengar yoga, what attracts me to it. And, when I think about myself as a teacher, it's really that idea that I want to share with students, and kind of like where that makes my mind go is, what is a student? What is a teacher? You can't be a teacher if you're not a student. And ultimately, as a teacher, I'm trying to share with students a little bit about my own journey, right? And then see what resonates for them. So I those kinds of words, sharing, playfulness, exploring, like the exploration. Of course I teach, but I really do more and more. And interestingly, the online teaching has, I think, taken me down this road even more, just because of whatever limitations there were in the online format. I feel like it's forced me to go down this road even more in a positive way. But yeah, it just, I don't like to think of myself as teaching students to do this, then this, then this, then this. I'd much rather teach students the internal dialogue of how to explore a pose from multiple different directions. So best way to do that is to maybe take them on the journey, share my own exploration, see what lands, see how they can change it to suit them. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking that I like those words a lot. So
I really like that. That really resonates with me. And it's funny, I find like online teaching has limitations. You can't physically adjust someone. You can't always see someone. The camera, some people don't put their camera on. That's something I try to discourage. But sometimes the lighting isn't good, or the camera angle isn't good, or they're using their phone. It is how it is. I'm delighted if they join. I'm grateful if they're there at all. And then I'll try and get to see them as well as I can, so I can give them as much as I can. But something I've noticed is, and it's sort of feeding into what you're saying, I find I'm not so much instructing as often I'm inquiring. I'm saying, okay, so we'll try this. And I'm asking them questions, but they're on mute. So it's ridiculous, but it really works for me because they're on their own. Because I do feel that an online class, a Zoom class, a live Zoom class, a two-way class, it to me is something of a bridge between attending a class and home self-practice, because you are at home, you're probably on your own, and you're just seeing your teacher. You're not seeing the group. They're there. If you were in my class, I'd mention you, and I'd mention someone, and I'd mention someone else. So that the group are there. But in actual fact, it's just you and the voice of your teacher. So I think it's easier to kind of go inside. But because of that also, partly because like I'm always I encourage, I don't want chat in class, but I do want intelligent questions. And if someone is feeling maybe my question isn't intelligent, if you're asking it, it's intelligent. You know, if you need to ask it, it needs to be asked. But you don't have that on Zoom, obviously. But I nonetheless do ask, because I want them to be going, okay, yeah, so I'm told to do this, but now he's asking how it feels. And that to me is, in a way, as important as correctly attaining a pose, or however you want to phrase it. It's what happens. It's the process, the under the skin process. What happens if you pull up on that kneecap? What effect does it have, and what effect does that effect have? And following lines up the body and down the body. Personally, I find it fascinating, and something I've really tried to work with, because I'm really amazed that, I guess it's partly because of lockdowns. We'd nothing else to do. So people were coming to loads of yoga classes because they couldn't go to the cinema. They couldn't go and visit their family or whatever. So loads of yoga classes. And that habit is there for a lot of people now. So people are coming to a lot of classes. So on Monday, I can do this. On Tuesday, I can do that, referring back to Monday. On Wednesday, I can do that, having built Monday and Tuesday. It's an absolute gift as a yoga teacher, I feel, to be able to kind of weave an elaborate practice rather than let's do something today and I might see you in a few weeks,
Yeah. One thing I made a very conscious decision about early on when we took the studio online is to, I realized that the online classes have definite value. I mean, on one hand, they are not the same as in person. I mean, there's no two ways about it. There's, like you said, there's certain limitations. But then on the other hand, there's something very interesting and empowering about being in that in-between space between online and, between being in a class setting and home practice. And that was kind of the arena that I wanted to really step into and use it as an opportunity. And shoot, I just forgot where I was headed there with that.
Right. But can I move sideways a little bit? So when did you take up Iyengar?
I started in 2005. I had spinal surgery. I had been dealing with very serious and ongoing back problems. And I had a little taste of Iyengar yoga prior to the surgery, as kind of like a rehab. I had tried so many different things to try and avoid surgery. But by the time I came to the yoga, I was already set for the surgery date, and it was going to happen. But after the surgery, the surgeon was like, you have to do something, physio, and he mentioned yoga. And I had such a positive taste in my mouth, so to speak, of Iyengar yoga specifically. So I sought it out after the surgery, and it was a major component of my rehab. It nursed me back to health.
Yeah, it's a very skillful approach. So it would be a very useful way, because you can modify it so much.
The classes really made me feel safe. And, when you're in chronic pain, that's a big deal, right? So like other group classes, I don't think I would have been comfortable in these classes. Not only the precision of the instructions, but the teacher's ability to modify the poses according to my needs. The fact that it was acceptable for, there to be a handful of people in the room and then a handful of different ways of doing the poses, that was very inviting. It was very welcoming, because I had to modify a lot of poses at that time. And so, it was really good from a physical perspective. It definitely helped me get back to, out of pain eventually. But even more importantly, and this was kind of like the surprise, was what it did for me emotionally. I mean, the antidepressant benefits of the practice were instantaneous. Okay, the physical benefits in my case, because I don't know, everyone's different, but it was very serious issues that were a long time. They took a long time to heal. So I didn't really receive the physical benefits for some time, but the emotional benefits were instant. I mean, it was the best part of my day. I really wanted to keep coming. So yeah, and that's what hooked me. And then there's kind of like no turning back.
Why would you go anywhere else when you found what works for you? That's interesting. And I appreciate what you mean about the emotional benefits in a way, the mental health benefits. It's very tangible. So it really does work. And tell me, I'm curious about, the whole kind of guru focus. I feel that these days, there's been a lot of gurus have been toppled. Now, BKS Iyengar was never toppled. He was known to be, what was it, BKS beat, kick, slap, someone said, and he was known to be quite a stern man. But I just wonder about, can we take all of the teachings from someone who's no longer with us? Where do you stand on the concept of having one single guru and taking everything from them? Or am I oversimplifying?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think it's complex. For me, I don't have exposure to other styles of yoga. Really, the only yoga I've ever done has come from the Iyengar lineage. And I think as much as, he has been known for beat, kick, slap, he's also known for love and creativity and, passion for yoga, self-study. So I think that we are all complex people, with different sides to us, and we all have context to our identities. And so as far as modern day and current interpretations of the guru model, I don't think there'll ever be another BKS Iyengar. Mm-hmm. That, but from him, I take the teachings that resonate, and like he has taught us, incorporate them into my own practice. And then that's what I share with the students. And so again, back to sort of what we were talking about earlier, this idea of exploration and study and playfulness, that's the relationship I want to establish with my students. I'm not there to give answers. I'm there to probing questions. And actually, I think this may have been where I was headed with the online stuff as well, is that, teaching is not so much about do it right, do this one thing this way, but I sort of became very motivated to give the students an experience of yoga. What is the experience of yoga? I mean, if you can do Ekapad Raj Kapotasana full pose, are you closer to Samadhi than if you can do Vrikshasana or Uttita Trikonasana? I mean, no, it's not. So what is the experience of yoga, and how do we get there? So in a modern day, the current situation, teachers that I interact with now, I don't have a lot of patience for sort of the hierarchical model. I feel like the Iyengar family, and this may be a conflict or a contradiction in my own, like in me, but I feel like I kind of put them aside, like separate, and I have a certain reverence for them because I'm so grateful for what I've learned from them. But I can't imagine that relationship continuing on, that type of relationship continuing on, today. Like I would never want my students to interact with me in that way. Yes. It's all about empowerment. Like that's how I feel. Yeah. Self-study, yoga are the tools of self-study. So that's what I want to empower you or the students with. It's very complex, the whole it being a spiritual discipline, it can get really messy. Power dynamics, and students, they look up to us, they and there's some good to that. You as a teacher, you want to have a certain connection relationship, but I think we have a real responsibility to make sure that it doesn't go down the wrong road.
We need to tread very carefully and very consciously and be aware of a huge power differential. Is that the right way you would say it?
Yeah.
It's not that we're any better than them. It's not that we know any more than them, but there is a certain expectation of your yoga teacher. And of course, it could be very tempting to cross a line. And it's very important because the whole of yoga gets tainted when that happens. So, yeah.
And truly, with Iyengar Yoga especially, the principles that make Iyengar Yoga unique is this idea of being able to customize the practice, of understanding how unique individuals are and how many different presentations of the different poses there are, so that you can find the one that really suits you. That goes on the teaching side and on the practice side. There's just not one way of doing anything. That's the aspect of Iyengar Yoga that resonates for me, and I think should really be celebrated.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You were saying you haven't really practiced other styles. I did in the past. My first introduction to yoga was Satyananda Yoga, which is a little more gentle. And then I got into Ashtanga Yoga, which is a little less gentle. And then I found Iyengar Yoga, and nothing else quite matched it in terms of its adaptability, its creativity. I found it it's a wonderfully creative practice. And so, yeah, I do agree with you. But I do also feel that there are different people need different, like yoga, the state of Samadhi is the state of Samadhi, but different styles of yoga may work for different people. So some people are much more kind of type A, and very dynamic flowing Ashtanga style might be something that will hold them. Whereas I know some people will come to my class and they just find it too damn slow. And too careful, or too, analytical. And I kind of don't care. If it's not for them, that's okay. I'm not going to try and hold them. I'll send them to, maybe you could try this. That might work for you. So, but that to me is the wonder of, the broader practice of yoga. So I'm conscious we're not in a bubble. And I like Samadhi Yoga Studio. It's only yoga. It's an eclectic studio in that there are different styles of yoga, but I never got into Pilates or Kung Fu or anything. Not that I absolutely respect them, but they're not yoga. And yoga is the one thing I feel I have some handle on. And so I can manage that. And hopefully I can do that well. And I try not to overstretch myself and or claim skills I don't have. So I'm conscious.
It's like because Iyengar has been quoted as saying all yoga is yoga. Iyengar Yoga, they have to label it for convenience, for ease, that sort of thing. But within Iyengar Yoga, we have jumpings, we have dynamic practice, we have slower practice, we have restorative yoga, we have the option, and it depends again, what is the teacher's nature? What is it about, in your own practice that you want to share with your students?
That's awesome.
So we attract the students. We attract the right students, right? You want to connect with the students that like what you like, so that you can share.
Yeah, that's so true. I always remember someone I know said, you don't need to like your teacher. And I always thought that doesn't quite feel right. I do want to like my teacher because I want to spend time in their company. And if I don't resonate with them and like the things they like, I find it's a funny one. I've some people come in for many, many years, and I would know them very well in that I know the shape of their shoulder blade and I know the rotation in their hip, but I may not know, where they live or their family situation or what kind of employment they have. But I do know if we went out for a bite to eat, we'd get on great. So to me, it is important to resonate with your teacher.
I agree. And not just like them, but respect them. Right? If you're really bumping, if you have very different opinions about whatever things, approaches to life, it's going to be hard to form a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, Stephanie, on behalf of all of the people tuning in, thank you so much for joining Yoga Chats. And I'm Greg Walsh. I'll be back again soon, and I will we'll talk some more yoga very soon. Thanks a million.